Hi there, Stephen Pataski here, founder of the Luxus Group. Thanks very much for tuning in today. It's going to be a neat show, a little different angle today. We're going to talk about private clubs. I've been getting asked a lot of questions lately from people about acquiring real estate within these clubs, such as like, hey Steve, I'm thinking about buying in this club in Phoenix or Palm Springs or Mexico, and what do you know? Well, we actually know quite a bit about private club space. Even though so many previous videos around STRs or short-term vacation rentals, we actually have a lot of experience in this space as well. Private clubs are a remarkable way to enjoy with your family, a remarkable way to bring these incredible memories together because of the exclusivity and the amenities and all these amazing elements that make private clubs so special. So today's episode is dedicated exclusively to that, and we're really going to be talking at a high level. What makes them great, what to expect, and the different types of clubs. Now, before I dive in, if it's your first time to the channel, that's what we do. This channel is dedicated not to sell you anything or pitch you anything. We have a business we're very proud of. It's called the Luxus Group. If you want to know more about that and the experience we've created over the last 15 years, go back to the very first show. It'll show up on the screen right now. It will give you a bit of our why. The why really is helping people, give them information, no cost to you, information, tools, ideas to ensure when you pursue your dream property or your dream investment property within the vacation space. We focus on residential vacation style properties. That's our sweet spot. That's what you're going to learn about here. So go back and watch some previous episodes, but really thanks a lot for tuning into this one. And of course, if you are a recurring guest, as always, grateful for coming back, and I'm grateful for you sharing and liking and giving us feedback about what we should talk about. It was your feedback over the last couple months that brought us to this particular episode, so thank you. Okay, let's dive in to private clubs. You might be thinking, where do private clubs generally operate? Where do they generally start? Well, first off, think lifestyle destinations, places people want to be. So think ski destinations, think desert destinations, think beach destinations, think Caribbean, think lifestyle spots, culinary scenes. This is where you're going to see the majority, in particular when we talk about later, the new age clubs, because there's private clubs anywhere. There could be in any town and any place in North America, there's going to be a private club. But the ones that have this really significant impact, particularly the new age clubs, because there's so few of them in the world, they are really targeted intentional destinations. And we're going to run through a few today of our favorite leaders within this industry. But think Tuscany, think Phoenix, think Maui, think Big Island, think Vail. Think these places. These are places you can have, you're going to create this really remarkable, unique real estate and club experience. And there's three elements to what I'm going to talk about today. Legacy clubs, less than 20 years, new age clubs within 20 years, but within new age clubs, there's actually two parts. We're going to talk about clubs that are fully private and clubs that are semi-private. And there's a big difference between the two, and in particular, if you are one of our followers that likes short-term rentals and creating revenue off your property, you're going to want to hear about door number 3 and these types of private club experiences that do allow a hybrid of these short-term rentals. So first off, legacy clubs. Again, this is my terminology, so please don't take it as gospel. You know, everyone has a different way to speak about them, but legacy clubs are one that I would suggest to be 20 years or older. And there's a few elements that make it, in my mind, what's considered a legacy club. The first part of it being that's over 20 years, almost exclusively, I would say maybe 99% of the time, I could be off of my math there, but they're controlled by the membership. So a legacy club, if you go way back, clubs have been around forever. And all types of clubs, whether it's golf clubs and residential clubs, downtown clubs, athletic clubs, restaurant clubs, there's all sorts of clubs in the world. Our focus is around what clubs that actually have real estate components that you can own in. So understand that as we go through this legacy club. Otherwise, it would take a whole nother episode to cover all of those. So legacy real estate, golf clubs generally will have all these wonderful amenities, but the really important aspect about it, which you're going to see, is you're going to assume every club has this, owned and controlled by the members, when in fact, most of the new age clubs are not. There's a timeline in which they're controlled by the members. Usually takes about 15 to 20 years. So park that in your mind, because I'm going to come back to that and give a lot more detail on what that means. So assume in the case of a legacy club is you're buying into a club, a piece of real estate and a membership attached to it that is owned and controlled by the members themselves. So think about it through the lens is there's 1,000 members within this, and there's 1,000 homeowners, and there's 2 golf courses and a clubhouse and a tennis facility. Everything is owned by those 1,000 members. And those members pay dues to the club to support the amenities. They would pay golf dues. Usually there's two types of dues, golf dues and social dues. Sometimes they're blended together. Your golf dues would cover your golf, obviously. Your social dues would cover access in the spa and the fitness facilities and the restaurants and the tennis club and the other various amenities. The majority of clubs generally have them blended together in one annual fee, but as a member, you're responsible to not only buy a membership to access those amenities, and number two, you're also responsible to pay the dues to ensure they're upkept, because there's no other source of revenue for a club. They don't go out and, especially the legacy clubs, they don't go raise money, they don't go rent their properties out or their clubhouse out. Now sometimes the odd one, there might be a little bit of extra revenue comes from those outside activities, but generally speaking, clubs are meant to be for club members. Now in the case of legacy clubs, they've already grown to a point and matured to a point that usually you'll see 20 years or older, there's no more real estate to buy that's new. You're buying real estate that is older. It could be 10, 15, 20, 40, 50, 80 years old, depends on when your club was founded. And again, controlled by the membership. So there's really important aspects to understand about this. First pro number one is the best probably aspect of it is what you see is what you get. You know everything is built up, there's no construction going on, there's no future amenities to be built. You know what the golf course looks like, you know what the clubhouse looks like, you know what everything looks like. A culture is already established at that club and you know what that is as well. So you can see the amenities, you can see the golf course, you can see all those elements. You're not going to be surprised down the road by a change, and you know what the culture is. So that's number two. If you like that particular culture, is generally ingrained and very well established in these legacy clubs. It's always really good to know what you're getting yourself into, and a legacy club provides that. So that would definitely be a couple elements of an established club and why it would be good looking at these types of clubs for sure. Another element that's a unique pro for this is there's generally some form of stature around it, a legacy that they've already created. Maybe your particular club hosted the US Open 15 years ago, or maybe it's hosted an important tennis event, or maybe it's known for something else that's different. But usually there's a stature and a really strong sense of pride around these communities. When you buy in, you're part of the family. Now that certainly applies over to the new age clubs we'll get to as well. But when they've been in families for multiple generations, like many of these clubs have been, there's a really, really strong sense of pride and community that exists within these legacy clubs. And the final pro, which is going to come to a con as well, so think about it through both sides, is usually these clubs can be well capitalized. Because people have been paying into these clubs for so long, a well-managed club will have strong reserves, they'll have a strong vision for the future, how they're reinvesting back in, and these are the clubs you want to look at, because I'll flip to the cons here to see the other side of that equation that you have to be super, super aware of. Before I hit that, those are the pros, and lots of great reasons to look at a legacy club. Okay, let's shift to some cons of a legacy club. Quite often you'll see, and again I said one of the pros is a well-managed club, well-capitalized club with good reserves and good vision, usually have upkept their amenities, they've done a great job of improving and replacing infrastructure and adding new amenities. But there is the flip side. Many of these clubs have not done a good job of that. So you really want to understand when you're getting into something, do the amenities look tired when you're touring around? Is the irrigation going to have to be replaced in the golf course in 3 years from now at an assessment of $20,000 per person? Are there reserves sitting within this particular club to ensure they can invest in these future amenities and these future problems that come? Again, the older the asset, the more money it needs for upkeep. So really, really understanding when you go in, do your due diligence to make sure the club is well funded, has a really clear 5, 10, 15-year picture what they're looking to invest into, because in the event you get into a club where they're uncertain about their future, or potentially, which happens all the time, membership's mixed on reinvestment. Half the membership, and I'm generalizing here, but half the membership want to see a big step forward, and they will assess. An assessment is where they ask every member to contribute a certain amount of capital, and that capital gets deployed back into the club, so remember that. So they'll ask every member to assess, and half of them say, yes, absolutely, assess me $20,000 so we can replace the irrigation and upgrade the tennis facility and build a new restaurant. The other half says, yeah, you know what, I kind of like it the way it is. I'm kind of fine with it. I like, doing the way that it is. The restaurant's totally fine. And that conflict, internal conflict with memberships, can hurt a culture. It can prevent forward progress. It can prevent reinvestment. And it could stall it to a point where sometimes clubs actually get to the edge or could go bankrupt. And I've had friends buy into private clubs that have actually gone bankrupt within 4 or 5 years after they bought in because they did not do this due diligence, did not realize there were zero reserves, did not realize that the community was split when they bought in. They just got romanced by the idea of it, and they didn't realize there was conflict going on. The best part about it in a club, it's 100% transparent, again, in a legacy club, because there's a board of directors. The board of directors is required to publish minutes and have an AGM with the members and explain all the things that are going on, good or bad, with the club. So it's really, really easy to do due diligence around the financial setup and structure and wherewithal of a legacy club. And that's probably one of the pros, but sometimes you may not like what you see, or you may not understand what you see. Be disciplined, ask questions, ask the tough questions, and things like, has the board getting along the last couple? Do they have a clear vision? Has the membership widely endorsed the idea of forward progress and movement in terms of a really healthy financial future for the club? These are the questions I would ask before I get into any legacy club. I promise it will serve you well to set up for a really, really exciting investment, and of course, a really exciting journey for your family. Now, as I wrap up the legacy clubs, as I mentioned out of the gate, real estate. Obviously, we want to buy real estate. These clubs are the type where you're going to be buying a home on the golf course or on the tennis center or close to the clubhouse. So what type of real estate can you expect? Well, it depends. Obviously, there's hundreds of these types of clubs around North America. Everything's a bit different, but the common assumption is in a legacy club is that all their lots are sold and all the houses are built. So generalizing again, but that's really important. So the type of construction you would see is not necessarily new builds, but is refurbishments, renovations. So expect to buy an older home, and by doing that, do your due diligence. You can circle back to previous episodes that talk about common mistakes when buying properties, but make sure you do your due diligence on the home itself, that what you're buying, 20, 30, 40 years old, what type of reinvestment does it need? Maybe someone already did a little lipstick job on it, but they didn't fix the plumbing kind of behind the scenes. So really make sure you do your work on the home itself, so you don't buy a house for, let's say, $1 million and you realize it needs $500,000 for new plumbing, new roof, pest issues, whatever it could be, termites. Have a really clear understanding. That's all covered in previous episodes of how to do the diligence on the house. But again, recognize legacy clubs generally mean older homes, and that's okay. You can renovate and you can make it special and make it your own. So that still works. Just make sure you go in eyes wide open. Okay, I'm going to switch gears into new age clubs. So new age clubs for me break into two specific buckets. One, again, fully private. The second, semi-private. Now, there's some commonalities between these two clubs. I'm going to run through the commonalities, so I don't have to reiterate them on each one, and I'm going to dive into the differences of each. So let's talk about the commonalities first. This really started to become a thing in the early 2000s when people were looking for a different style of club. You go to legacy clubs, some of them are known for being very formal, very strict etiquette. You tuck your golf shirt in, you wear certain golf shoes. There's certain hours where you can only stay out so late, or kids can only access certain things. It really has changed. This new age club movement came from a desire to have a family-focused club first. It's not just about the adults, not just about the kids, not just about the guys or the girls. It's about everyone. It's bringing together families together in a really special environment where you can create memories at the entire generational level. Now, I'm going to talk about what that means, because when you buy a membership in these clubs, and these new age clubs, usually means multiple layers of your family are included in that membership. A legacy club may have that, but quite often it's usually a membership for you and your spouse, and there will be additional memberships for potentially your parents or your kids. So understand what the membership questions to ask as well is, how does the membership work? This one I'm going to spend time on because the previous one's very common. This was uncommon, is becoming the new norm on ensuring these types of new age clubs can provide value amongst the entire vertical of your family. Now, one big element of new age clubs is, and it's common, highly amenitized. And I say amenities, we're thinking about all the things I mentioned before, but even at potentially another level. So we're talking amazing clubhouses, world-class restaurants built with it, not the old school club food, which is hot dogs at the nine-hole snack shack and burgers and fries. We're talking 5-star restaurants and casual experiences and amazing snack bars and juice bars. So think about an F&B experience that is equivalent to some of your favorite restaurants anywhere in the world within the gates of your own club. The amenities will also be around tennis and fitness, taking it to a whole new level, between Pilates and HIIT and indoor-outdoor courts and the tennis and pickleball and all these aspects. These take significant investments, and the old school clubs generally would have like a little fitness room in the back corner or the basement, and it's kind of dark, and they're trying to renovate to keep up. These ones will make fitness and health and wellness the center point of the club. And if you look into some of these I'll mention later, you'll see they highlight that maybe as much as usually what is the primary amenity of most of these courses is, in fact, the golf course. New age clubs have done a remarkable job of building these super incredible golf courses. They're so amazing. Now again, nothing against legacy clubs. There's something special about that demographic have created from 3 or 4 generations ago. These amazing clubs are a different style of golf course than what you see potentially in these new age clubs. There's nothing better or worse. I want to be 100% clear. It's like a personal preference. It's like ice cream. Molly Harris said on the previous Big Island one, it's all good, just different flavors for different people. And the new age club, the golf courses, are 2 elements to it which make it different. You have this amazing amenity that comes along with it, but it's not as formal, which shifts me to culture. So this is, again, generally quite common between these 2 types of clubs, fully private and semi-private, is a different culture. And this is the big shift. And it's really important to hear this because until you experience it, it's really hard to actually understand. But instead of the formalities that's generally been associated with private clubs, again, tucking your shirt in, maybe you have to wear pants, whatever it might be, these new age clubs are totally different. T-shirts on the golf course, barefoot on the golf course. You kids are encouraged to play. You play in 5-sims or 6-sims on the golf course instead of the standard 4. You have all these remarkable things that brings down the formalities because our life is filled with formalities. And if we go to a place where we can't actually just like relax and let the guard down and chill, are you really recovering? So the mindset behind the creators of these new age clubs is to create a haven for people to come from their busy, high-stress lives filled with formalities to be not formal at all. Be super casual, be chill. You know what, maybe I want to play 4 holes of golf today on this golf course. No problem, that's part of the culture because that's all my kids can handle. Unlike saying you have to play the full 18 because the tee sheet is stacked and that's just a formality of what's always been done. It really makes for a completely different experience than what you've ever seen in the last 20 years, but particularly the last 10 years, it's really exploded, creating this wonderful environment for families, which rolls into another thing that's really important is this vertical membership. Now this doesn't exist, you have to ask the question based on your club, but I'm just going to explain one because it's quite unique. And you'll see this in different types of clubs, whether it's fully private or semi-private, but vertical membership. So what's that mean? Most cases, it means 1 up, 2 down. So in the case of I'm buying a membership, my parents, so me and my wife, both of our parents are actually members as well. So now both our parents can use the club and the facilities as a member would. Now that's 1 up. Now 2 down. My kids, my wife and I, our children can use them, the amenities the same way as any other member. And when they become adults and they have their own children, that's 2 down, 1 down, 2 down, those kids. So it's really built specifically for the intention of providing this legacy experience. I use legacy a lot, but I don't use it lightly. Legacy to me is creating memories at multiple generations. That's the extension of a legacy. It's beyond just you and your specific time period and your season of life. It's about creating a season that lasts multiple generations. These clubs specifically created this vertical membership for the exact purpose of legacy. They did it so that my parents and my kids and their kids can all get together in this multi-generational vacation trip experience and create remarkable memories. Now that's the culture, that's the amenities, but you might be asking yourself, well, who actually runs the club? This is a really, really important point and very specifically differentiated from legacy clubs. There's 2 different ways to look at how a new age club is operated. There is, in all cases, effectively all cases, there's a visionary that's behind it that has been their baby, their passion. They're the ones that assembled all the ideas, they've assembled the capital, they've brought the capital themselves, their partners in. They've acquired the land, they've organized the entitlements, and they ultimately build it out. And we usually call this person the sponsor, but we'll just call them the visionary for the sake of the rest of this video. The visionary is the person that got it off the ground from the get-go because they had a dream for themselves to make it unbelievably special for their own personal family, and it just extends beyond. Usually for the visionaries, it's not about profit out of the gate. They're not thinking, oh, that piece of land and all those memories I'm gonna make a whole bunch of money off of that. They're usually thinking first passion, fit, culture, and then they reverse engineer it to say, how do we make sure it's profitable? Obviously, if you're gonna attract capital, which is many tens and tens, and usually hundreds of millions of dollars, usually hundreds of millions of dollars to get one of these off the ground, is you obviously have to provide a return on capital for that. But that's usually not the primary motivator. Usually it's around the passion, because if you build the right product, and it is that old thing, build it and they will come, you bring the capital on, you have a chance for the capital partners to make money, you have a chance for this vision to come to life. Now, this visionary has two paths when they get to a club maturity. Now, we're going to call club maturity when there's enough members paying annual dues that it becomes sustainable for the club to be held on its own 2 feet. Because remember, the first 10, 15, 20 years of a club is because you put hundreds of millions of dollars up front. We only have 100 members. Those 100 members did not pay for the $500 million acquisition of setting this whole thing up. They pay a portion, and what happens is this visionary continues to subsidize and capitalize as they sell lots and they sell land and they sell memberships to the point it hits a point of maturity. And this creates two paths. Some visionaries have the path to continue to manage that club and continue to have control of that club beyond that maturity event, while some clubs have it where all the amenities are flipped to the members for $1 at the end. And effectively, all the memberships have come in, everything is sold out, the members take the amenities back, and the visionary takes a step back. This is actually a really important point, because if you're looking at a new age club, understanding about the visionary, what their intention is when the club hits maturity, is a really important aspect. In a lot of cases, people don't stay in to see that because they've come in the club so early, and it takes 20 years usually for these clubs to sell all their real estate out, is that they may not even see that maturity event. But it will generally be very well documented in the club membership documents. You're going to look for a part in there that talks about club maturity or selling a certain amount of memberships or transition from the memberships being sold out back to the members. There'll usually be a good explanation in there. So it's an important part of your due diligence. It's important to know because until that point, most of the time, there's actually not a lot of transparency about financial aspects of the club because the sponsor or the visionary is selling land and lots, and it's all rolled into one pot of capital. And then down the road, as memberships go up and people are paying dues and they start to even out, then everything becomes transparent and they hand it off to the memberships. So when I get to the cons here a bit later about why this is, sometimes lack of transparency can, make people fearful. It doesn't, that's where a legacy club is. You should see everything. Should be annual audited financial statements every year. A new age club, on the other hand, is you will not have potentially any clue financially how the main capital partners are doing and how the club visionary is doing because they generally don't have an obligation to share anything until that club maturity event. So we'll come back to that as a con. So to reiterate that point, having a very good understanding of the visionary, their motives, the management company, sometimes they're two different people, sometimes they're one and the same. What's their track record? Is this a company that's been doing this for many years, or is this a one-off? Is this a billionaire that has a passion project, which all the capital in the world is there, but potentially they may keep control of the club forever? So understanding those questions. Again, there's no right or wrong. Completely fine either way, but it's good to know what your obligations as a member are and what their obligation is as the main sponsor and visionary to ensure that vision actually achieves its full potential. Okay, hopefully that establishes the commonalities between fully private and semi-private. Now we're going to dive into the differences between the two so you can help evaluate what might be a fit for yourself. On the fully private side, it is what it says. So you, generally speaking, within quite often your vertical membership, you and your families, and you can have guests with you, but there's going to be guest restriction policies. But it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy it with other people outside of your vertical membership. So that's one important element to note. The next aspect around it is because the culture is closed, it's within the membership, understanding that that is your culture. There isn't this outside culture coming in that's changing things up. They become your people. It becomes your community. And if you don't like that community, you probably shouldn't buy into that club because that's really all you're going to see when you're there. But if you get a feel for that community and you love it, it aligns with your core values, then you're going to find you're going to be in a place where there's more of your peeps than ever before. As I mentioned before, it's really family-driven, legacy-driven, and if those are things that are important to you, definitely check it out. If you are someone that generally doesn't like the social atmosphere and hanging with people to these different events and seeing people all the time, this may not be the right fit for you, and clubs may not be the right fit either in general, because usually there's a very strong social component, whether it's fully private or semi-private, but particularly in fully private, is expect to be part of the community, expect to invest into that community, expect to have fun, expect your kids to integrate within it, and that's really what makes it so special. To summarize a few of the pros, exclusivity is one of the most key elements of this. So many stars, whether it's Hollywood, athletic stars, business stars, they flock to these communities. And they do it because of the closed nature that people can't come on in, whether it's paparazzi or it is just random people that are using the club facilities or amenities. They love the privacy and exclusivity. So for you, if that's an important trait for you, that you're looking to escape from it and be in a place where you can be yourself without having that external influence over you, this is definitely by far probably the most important pro that would exist within a fully private club. Number two is usually, I'm generalizing, but usually most of these clubs have an equity-based membership. Now, that means something different for any club, but you'll find a commonality is that usually what happens is you will get back 80% of the then value of purchasing your membership. So let's just say that a membership for a club is $100,000, and that is about a starting point for memberships in these style of clubs. They are very expensive. You have to think six figures to start to access one of these clubs. You would get $80,000 back, or 80% of the 100, when you sell your property. And usually the membership's attached to the property, so they don't have the situation where someone can just buy a membership and not be a member of the community. So it's all attached. So it's nice to have liquidity of your membership when you actually sell your property, but it's 80%. So you're gonna lose a little bit, unless of course the value of the membership goes up, because it's 80% of the then value. So let's just use the math again. You pay it for 100, maybe it's worth $200,000 now, and you get 80% of 200, so you get 160 back. Now you've actually made $60,000 on your membership. Now we'll move into the cons here right away about don't buy into these clubs to make money, because we'll talk about that in a minute, but don't look at it through an appreciation lens. But it's absolutely possible, and the pandemic has really accelerated the financial growth of these markets, where people have made a lot of money on their balance sheet just through appreciation of both membership and assets, but you don't rely on that as an exclusive. This is not an investment, this is a lifestyle legacy investment, which is totally different than just purely a financial investment. Now the cons are, as I mentioned before, expensive. Now expensive is a relative term like anything, but this generally caters to, the top 1%, top 0.1% in that region, because the majority of these really new age clubs, your entry point on buying in is roughly around 2 million US, but they quickly accelerate where a sweet spot is more 5 to 10 million US, and then there's really no ceiling. You'll have people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all sorts of different, the Kardashians and all these people that buy into these clubs, and they have no limit to what they can spend. They choose these clubs for a reason, we already mentioned, but recognize it's generally expensive to buy in, but that's why you get world-class amenities, world-class experience. In addition to the buy-in being expensive, the annual costs to maintain, so like homeowners association fees and the club dues, are also high. They can be anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 a year, depending upon where you're at. For example, one of the clubs called Yellowstone has its own private ski mountain, not a ski hill like Bunny Hill, like an actual legitimate ski mountain. It's exclusive for the members of Yellowstone Club. The only place in the world that actually has its own mountain, so it's crazy expensive. But again, that's where people will flock to have that very unique and special experience that doesn't exist anywhere else. Another con is because the visionary and the sponsor are in control of the project, there isn't board oversight. There isn't a board of directors of members, your peers representing you, looking after your interests. You have to put the trust into the person. So it's a pro and a con. Personally, I believe that the visionary has a track record of doing this well, has capital behind them, and passion in the project. They're going to ensure it succeeds or die in that mountain. They will go forward with everything they have, and the experience, I could give dozens of examples to show that this is when you find the most success within these private clubs. But you don't know. You don't know if they're making millions of dollars or losing money, if they're subsidizing, how they do it. So you don't know. You don't know until you hit that maturity event, and the amenities and the financials are all turned back over to the members. So some people find this a con. I actually find it more of a pro, because I believe in certain visionaries to deliver an exceptional product because they have a track record. Some people will never find comfort in this, and they're going to wait, or they'll pursue a legacy club where there's that full transparency right out of the gate. And the final con is it happens very rarely, and with the pandemic, it's going to happen even more rare. There have been situations where these communities do not achieve their full potential, and it's very sad. Maybe they built the golf course and they built the tennis facility, but they didn't finish the clubhouse, and didn't finish, and you bought into something with a clear vision that you thought but they did not have the trajectory of success. And as a result, you're stuck with amenities that are not at the level you would expect. So that's why I believe buy in with visionaries that have proven track records, buy into clubs that have amenities that are already amazing, and so that in the event they don't build everything else out, you'll be very happy with it. And trust me, you'll find if you choose this path, one of the best experiences of your life. Now you might be asking, who are the best players within the fully private space? Well, there's a few buckets. By far, in my opinion, the world leader is Discovery Land Company. They have an amazing track record and built some of the absolute best facilities in North America and are now expanding into Europe. So definitely a fan of them. Another one's DMB. They built some incredible clubs, especially in the desert. They built in Lake Tahoe area and in Hawaii, so another really great. And then there's a whole bunch of one-offs. This is where I mentioned someone who maybe exited their business for a significant amount of money and has chosen the path to reinvest it into this lifestyle asset. And these exist everywhere. So in the one-off scenarios, it's really important to understand the visionary because this is their only passion, their only main thing, versus the companies like Discovery Land Co. or DMB, who have multiple different clubs, whether they're fully mature and handed back to the members or they're in their infancy. So really important to know the difference, but those will be the key players in the fully private space. Switching gears to semi-private, what does that mean? Well, it means that not just members can use the amenities, some other people can use the amenities. Who are these people? It is short-term rentals. So in this particular case, it would be a situation where you own a home in this beautiful community, but you want to create some revenue off of that. So you could rent it out to your friends or through a network or a rental pool, and it brings in outsiders into your club community and for the ability to use the amenities. Now, that may sound bad, but there's a lot of unique pros along with it. First off, I would say a pro is that you get a chance to monetize your property. Unlike fully private, there's no way to really create revenue off your property. Sometimes they allow member-to-member rentals, but you can't rent outside. So you're effectively out of pocket every year, all your costs. Well, if you're not ready for that type of annual cash burn because maybe you can't use it as much or just not part of your financial modeling, you want to create some revenue, these semi-private clubs are a great alternative because you can rent your property out, and generally speaking, they're going to get above market rates because people who from the outside want to access the private club amenities but not actually have to write the check for the real estate or the membership. So it's a really neat way to create money for yourself, and also to the second pro is money for the club. Usually the clubs will manage these pools, will have different revenue streams they can make off short-term rentals. So what happens quite often is because they rent out some properties, they create more revenue which offsets your dues. So instead of your annual dues being maybe $20,000 a year, perhaps they're $10,000 a year, and half of that because the club is set up to manage these rentals and create this really great experience for outside people, but in a way that helps create a benefit for everyone in the club, all the members, including the visionary and sponsor. The cons are what you would expect, is that there are outsiders, people who are renting using your amenities that you've invested in as a member. Now, it's not as bad as you think. It's not like frat party can come and have this huge party and take over the tennis courts for the day. The clubs generally will do a wonderful job on managing the rules so they're consistent for members and particularly strict for renters. So don't think about it through the lens that this is a horrible thing because it should be very well governed by the club, but it is a situation where you could be competing for amenities with other people who are not club members. A point to note on that, check in if you're pursuing a semi-private club. Quite often they'll actually have specific member-only areas, member-only tea times, member-only restaurants. So check to see what they have that maybe is completely separated, so you know if you're looking for a place where just going to be members, and you don't have to guess if the person across the bar is a member or not. Ask them if they have facilities or amenities or time slots that are specifically for fellow members. Most of the time they do, and it helps create that culture and community that's really special, of course, around private clubs. The final con, similar to fully private clubs, is if it's controlled by the visionary and the sponsor, you may not have the financial transparency to know how they're doing. Is the club going to make it and survive an economic downturn or recession? But again, track record of the visionary, track record of the capital behind them will generally be the diligence you can do to give you comfort that they are going to survive any eventuality. A couple of my favorite communities in the semi-private space will be Peninsula Papagayo in Costa Rica. Amazing beach community, amazing member facilities, but it is a hybrid where you have the Four Seasons Hotel, there's a Ritz Reserve being built right now, but then you have these private member amenities and experiences that make it really, really remarkable. So check that one out. And the second one is Punta Cana Resort and Club. I love that one because it's got a much lower price point to enter. You can get in for only around $1 million. You have this rental component to create the revenue. but you have world-class amenities. The PGA Tour event plays at Corrales, their #1 golf course. Outside of that, there's many, many more, but I just wanted to illustrate a couple of my favorites. I hope that provides a really great summary overall of the club experiences themselves. I'm just going to talk for a moment about the real estate within New Age clubs, because this is potentially where there's some upside. So semi-private you can rent out, but generally you're going to rely on not just necessarily capital appreciation, but capital preservation. You want to make sure you're not buying at a peak and it's going to be going down. So the really important thing to know is the supply and demand. I'm going to cover this in a future episode around market update, and keep an eye on it. It'll probably be a regular occurring theme, but it's what's going on in the market. Right now, it's a supply and demand issue. In the case of private clubs, there's not enough supply. If you look through Discovery Land Company, you look at all their communities, you're not going to find a lot for sale. The pandemic has really accelerated people's desire to be within the gates of these communities, and further has sucked up the supply that existed for maybe the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's built up, and it takes a long time to bring on new supply. So even in an established club, it takes 1 to 2 years for a home to be built, a spec home so someone can buy. That's a long window, but it takes way longer to actually create a new club. We're talking hundreds of acres and hundreds of millions of dollars in highly restricted entitlement places like Hawaii or California or the desert or wherever it may be. So there is going to be a significant supply crunch within these communities for, I believe, many, many years. It's going to be a long time to catch up, and whether or not it actually catches up is actually a really important question to know. So while I mentioned before, you're not targeting investment first to buy in these communities. It should be lifestyle and legacy first, but no one likes watching their balance sheet go down. We want to see it appreciate. I believe there's going to be significant depreciation within these club communities just due to the pure lack of supply and the demand that's coming from people targeting these types of communities. So watch for that. You can check the track record of the community you're looking at, but I think from a real estate perspective, I think it's going to be a good run. It's been a very good run the last couple of years for these clubs. I think it's going to continue on for a while. That is it on private clubs. Clearly you can see I'm passionate about this. I love it. I have fortunate to have many really great friends or members of these wonderful communities I get a chance to experience from time to time. And so just seeing them and just getting a sense of like how powerful and profound the memories and the experience they're creating there, it is a place to be. Now, maybe it doesn't fit your financial positioning at this particular point in your life, but I wanted to plant the seed. I want you to think about it, because maybe down the road, this is something you could pursue and look at and follow, because there will be new clubs. As long as it takes to launch something new, if you know what's coming, you can start to set aside money or think strategically as your family grows and you create this legacy between your parents and your kids' kids that you can invest into one of these clubs. Now, if you're targeting one sooner, contact us. We can give you a list of questions to ask, and of course, we can connect you directly with our favorites. So that's it, friends. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I love this stuff. I'm super excited about sharing future club-specific videos with you, talking about these remarkable amenities and this great way to live a lifestyle. So watch for those in the future, and come back to this at some point in your future if you're thinking about buying in. Use these tips. I promise I'll create a better buying experience, potentially can help you preserve capital or create more appreciation, but most importantly, help you create the best memories with your family going forward. Thank you. Bye for now.